Amunatira Pranachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaladhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaladhari Yashodanandana Bhajandaranjana Yashodanandana Bhajandaranjana Yamunatira Pranachari Yamunatira Pranachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Hare Krishna. Prabhus? Sarvata panipadantat Sarvato chishiro mukam Sarvata shitumamoke Sarvam avritya tistati. Mataji's. Sarvata bani padang tat Sarvato chi shiro mukam Sarvata shrutima loke Sarvam avritya tistati. Sarvataha, everywhere.
Everywhere.
Ba'ani,
Bani.
hands.
And
Padam,
Aram.
legs. Tat,
Ta.
that.
That.
Sarvata,
Sarata.
everywhere.
Everywhere.
Akshi,
Shi.
eyes. Shriya,
Shriya.
head. Mukam, face. Sarvataha, everywhere. Shrutimat, hearing. Loke, in the world. Sarvam, everywhere. Avritya, covering. Tistati, exists. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes and faces, and he hears everything. In this way, the super soul exists. Okay, can't change the echo, no problem. Purport. As the sun exists diffusing its unlimited rays, so does the Supersoul, or Supreme Personality of Godhead. He exists in his all-pervading form, and in him exist all the individual living entities, beginning from the first great teacher, Brahma, down to the small ants. There are unlimited heads, legs, hands, and eyes, and unlimited living entities. All are existing in and on the Supersoul. Therefore, the Supersoul is all-pervading. The individual soul, however, cannot say that he has his hands, legs, and eyes everywhere. That is not possible. If he thinks that although under ignorance he is not conscious that his hands and legs are diffused all over, but when he attains to proper knowledge he will come to that stage, his thinking is contradictory. This means that the individual soul, having become conditioned by material nature, is not supreme. The Supreme is different from the individual soul. The Supreme Lord can extend his hand without limit. The individual soul cannot. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that if anyone offers him a flower or a fruit or a little water, he accepts. If the Lord is a far distance away, how can he accept things? This is the omnipotence of the Lord. Even though he is situated in his own abode far, far away from earth, he can extend his hand to accept what anyone offers. That is his potency. In the Brahma Samhita it is stated, Galoka eva nivashati. Although he is always engaged in pastimes in his transcendental planet, he is all-pervading. The individual soul cannot claim that he is all-pervading. Therefore, this verse describes the Supreme Soul, the personality of Godhead, not the individual soul. Everywhere are, translation again, everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes and faces, and he hears everything. In this way, the super soul exists. So here,
Is this without equal?
it's okay. So here, Srila Prabhupada is addressing the supersoul manifestation of Krishna, which of course is only present in the material world. It is only present in the material world because the self-luminous living entities in Goloka Vrindavan and the Vaikuntha planets are constantly conscious of Krishna. So there is no need to have the supersoul present. The supersoul is Chirai Dakashi Vishnu. So it's an expansion of Vishnu, which pervades not just this universe, but innumerable other universes, which are compared to mustard seeds in a huge bag of mustard seeds. So try to conceive the extraordinary power of Krishna and his extraordinary magnanimity, because Krishna is providing the only reason that he has to expand his super soul is because he's providing the living entities out of his love for them an opportunity for them to forget him. So why would he allow the living entities to forget him? Because this is the underpinning notion of love, is that one has to have free will in order to be considered a bona fide form of love, that it can't be coerced under duress, under lock and key. That sort of goes against even the mundane appreciation of what love is. So it's amazing to think that Krishna is not only in the heart of all living entities, as again Chiradakashi Vishnu, who expands and is seated on the heart. Yantra arudhani maya. I'll go back to that verse in a sec. Ishvara, go over it now. Ishvara sarvabhutani. Ishvara sarvabhutani. Might have to go back to it. Ishvara sarvabhutani. Yantra arudhani maya. The super soul, Krishna, is directing the wanderings of all living beings, which are seated on a machine. Yantarudini Maya. So, how marvelous it is that Krishna creates a scenario whereby the living entity, the jiva, is actually completely immersed in Krishna. everything around him is an expansion of Krishna. So the material energy is an expansion of Krishna, and the super soul is an expansion of Krishna, and we are also Tatastha Shakti. We are also the marginal potency of Krishna. And we are the jiva, which is animating this machine, this material machine, which is the body, which is created by the material products of Krishna. From the 8 elements, earth, fire, water, ego, false ego, ahankara itina me. Kammano buddhya, kammano, mind, buddhya, and intelligence. Evacha ahankara itiya me. Bina prakriti astada. So, from all these elements, we then create this human replication of Krishna, which is designed for the living entity to get as much possible enjoyment separate from Krishna, but limited, very limited. Limited by the amount of years it can have, limited by the prime time within that human replication. So here Krishna is so kind as he is allowing us to live out a fantasy whereby we can try to replicate the pastimes of Krishna in the material world. And of course that is our foolishness. That is our state of envy against Krishna, which causes us to enter into the material world. So this is born of lust. This is born of the mode of passion. Kama esha, karo esha, rajagun, samudbhava. Samudbhava means born of. So rajagun is, of course, the mode of passion. So as soon as the living entity comes in contact with the material modes, then the passion and the ignorance is ignited. And then the transmigration begins, either transmigrating into lower species based on modes of ignorance, maintaining a status in the human mode, in the mode of passion, or ascending to higher planets through the demigod forms due to pious acts and higher consciousness and elevated consciousness. So that is the difference between Krishna and us. We're very limited in terms of our capacity to extend ourselves beyond one copy. One copy is it. That's all we can. That's all we can do. Aside from being able to control other living entities underneath us. So this is the race. This is the rat race in the material world. Is that people are very ardently and viciously competing with each other for limited resources. Resources are limited, materially speaking. Spiritually speaking, they're not limited, but materially speaking, they are. So they are undergoing all sorts of austerities and hardships in order to be in a position where they can dominate over other living entities. And they are unaware that the super soul is witnessing all these activities. So it's described that the super soul is like two birds, a bird witnessing another bird in a tree. And it's simply observing and watching. And also giving advice. The super soul is not completely dormant. Prabhupada comments, for instance, that this is how a lot of animals get their instructions, because there is no instinct. We do not give credence to the notion of instinct, because when one really thinks about it, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If anything, it points to a supreme supersoul, which is what Prabhupada says it is. So if they're looking at instinct, and if you change instinct for paramatma, for a supersoul, then yes, it makes sense. They are getting instructions from instinct, in brackets, paramatma. So if you say that instinct is paramatma, then yeah, we agree with that. So the Krishna conscious understanding is that when an animal consults instinct, because that's many biologists, that's the only way they can explain certain phenomena in terms of how such a young animal can understand how to do things from such a small age of a few days or a few hours. They describe it as instinct, but we describe it as paramatma, is that they're consulting the supersoul. So the supersoul is not entirely dormant. And this is actually a big flaw in the Darwinist philosophy of evolution, is that Darwin is essentially stating that the animals are evolving from one generation to the next. Yet somehow, within that tribe, somehow they all seem to have a master blueprint of which direction they're supposed to be evolving into. They are also supposed to know what that master plan is over hundreds or thousands of generations. Otherwise, how can they move in a synchronized manner towards that one evolutionary goal? That doesn't make sense. So that only makes sense if there's a grand design or a grand designer moving towards that direction. When you actually analyze it, it doesn't make sense. Because otherwise, why wouldn't different families or different evolve in different directions? It'd be pure chaos. The only way that all families within a certain tribe, within a certain breed, can evolve in the same direction is that they have the blueprint for that one direction. So how can that possibly be limited to one particular deer, for example, within a pack of deer? How is it possible that they all have that code to evolve in that same direction? So, in that sense, the only way that evolution could work is if the evolution was consulting Paramatma, which was the supreme designer of that evolution. So, there are tremendous flaws in Darwinism. I wasn't going to go into it too much, but we really need to write literature, further literature on this, because it's fatally flawed, actually. And I'll just do one last point on Darwinism. In his earlier books, before the evolution of species, Origin of Species, there was another book he wrote, and the other book was claiming that the indigenous species, the indigenous races, for instance, of Australia would be Aborigines, or the indigenous races of New Zealand, the Maoris, or Polynesians, or in Africa. The initial claims by Darwin was that, well, yes, because we came from these species, they will eventually die out. So they will inevitably die out. And from that, I believe it wasn't Darwin who said that, but from that you then had the notion of survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest, right? Meaning that the antecedent species, the preceding species, would die out. Otherwise, why would it have an impetus to evolve? Why would it evolve higher if it was already surviving quite well on one level? Why would it keep going? Where's the impetus? It doesn't explain that. It doesn't explain why the impetus is. So it was later, I believe it was later, that someone added on the phrase. It wasn't Darwin that came up with the phrase survival of the fittest. However, his initial writings, that's exactly what they said, because they were saying that these indigenous species would die out. So in Australia, there was a very common belief contesting the Christian view, which was thinking that, well, the Aborigines are going to die out anyway. And where did that come from? That came from Darwin. That came from, one can reasonably assume that came from the Darwinist teachings, which were very popular at that time. So, where am I getting to with this? Where I'm getting to this is that the foundation of Darwin is actually very hardcore racist in terms of its evaluation of the different races, but it's been incredibly sanitized or made digestible because they know that will not fly in today's age. But actually, it's irreconcilable with political correctness. but they want both worlds. So they're chopping off half the philosophy to keep it. So when you don't want to feed the hen, you chop off the head, right? You don't want to feed the hen? Well, you chop off the head. That way you get the eggs and you don't have to feed the chicken. Right? Right? No, wrong. Doesn't work. Chicken dies. So no more eggs are produced. So again, these are just gaping holes in the philosophy. Gaping holes. This is Darwin's contention. And yet we have billions of people believing this. And why do they believe Darwin? Because I know some more intelligent. I don't really understand Darwinism. I've never read a book on Darwin. I don't know anything about Charles Darwin. But I know that there are some smart scientists that believe in that. And I have faith in those scientists. And therefore, for that reason, I'm going to believe in Darwin and I'm not going to believe in God. So in this way, they say that we have a belief, that ours is just some imaginary faith, yet their faith is scientific, when actually the complete opposite is true. And that most people have no idea what the Big Bang Theory is. They have no idea what Darwin's fundamental teachings are. But this doctrine allows them to live the life they want, a life without consequences for their actions. And therefore it is extremely popular. Therefore it is very popular. So to say that we believe and they don't, or they believe and we don't, is false. It's a matter of where the consciousness of the living entity is directed to. So it's directed towards this nescience, it's directed towards this ignorance, because it empowers them, it licenses them to live a sinful existence and engage in demonic acts meant to destroy the world. So this is the position of the scientists. And many people, of course, they're not aware. They think, well, if my refrigerator works, if my automobile works, then clearly science works, and clearly I then just believe everything in science. But that's not scientific. The scientific is you separate the two. You say one is theoretical, unproven. It's hypothesis. It's hypothesis. You have to prove the hypothesis before it falls into the second category, which is empirical knowledge. In other words, we know how a refrigerator works. It works through condensation. We put in various gases. We power this through the evaporation of these gases. We're able to generate very cool air. Right? We're not disputing that. Yes, that's science. That's empirical. But don't lump the two together. Don't say empirical science or theoretical science is equal to empirical science, because that's a lie. That's false. That's completely untrue. So Krishna is so kind that he permits the living entity to engage in these nonsense theories within his own energy. And he can construct it in such a way that they can't even see Krishna, even though he is antantarasta paramanuchaya antarastam. That Krishna is inside the atom and he is outside the atom. So the living entity remains bewildered. They are situated on this machine, which is essentially a meat grinder with a timer on it. And that's precisely what's happening. They've got time to do their activities, but then the death comes, and then according to their activities, they're going to be rewarded or punished accordingly. And it's only through the mercy of the Shakya Vaishyas and Mahabhagavats, like Lord Jesus Christ, Muhammad, and of course His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, that there is any light at all in this material world. So this dull matter is covering the self-illuminating knowledge of the living entity, which in its natural state is Satchidananda. It is full of knowledge, eternality and bliss. but because it's desired this, it is given a vehicle to enjoy, and it is given a playground to enjoy in. But it is a illusion, and it's illusion because it's not factual. It's not factual. It's not our constitutional position. And that is why it's limited, and that is why it's temporary, and that is why it can never, ever, ever last, is because it's fictional. It's fictional. So, Satchidananda, that is our actual position, is eternal, to be knowledgeable and full of bliss. So the process of Krishna consciousness, the process of so Sri Rupa Goswami's mission is to propagate Lord Chaitanya's chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and eventually by regular recitation of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, all that is troublesome to the heart gets destroyed, and the living entity becomes once again fully illuminated in knowledge. And more, as one advances in Krishna consciousness, they are more and more able to see the facts from the fiction, to see the illusion from reality, and to see the modes of material nature acting. So this is a very good position to be in, when you actually can see that the modes are working, because you're saying, oh, okay, well, this is very much real, and perhaps I can get to the point where I'm not affected by these modes. And this is why Krishna repeats this ad nauseum, reiterates this point over and over and over again. Brahma bhuta prashanatma na sochati na kangsati samaseve subhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. Na sochati, neither laments, neither desires, sees gold and rock as the same. Honor, dishonor, it's all the same. Victory, defeat, it's the same. Why is this so important? Why is this key? Why is this repeated over and reiterated over and over? Not repeated, but reiterated. Each one's a little different. So why is Krishna saying that? Because he's saying that don't be overwhelmed by the material modes. Don't be overwhelmed by the material energy. Because this is not what you are. You're just observing this. So just do your duty and keep to the process. Keep on the boat that Prabhupada has provided us in ISKCON, and follow the rules in terms of how to become a super excellent Vaishnav. Hare Krishna. I think that went long enough. Any questions or comments or contributions? Gabrielle, Prabhu? Thought I saw a sparkle. Yeah, so, and just one last point I wanted to address in the class was that Prabhupada is also referring here also is indirectly talking about the Mayavadi philosophy, the notion that we will then eventually become God. So this is the last-ditch effort, this is the last snare of Maya, is to think that, once I've overcome these modes of nature, I can then merge with the Supreme. And this is, of course, illusion, because God is omnipotent and omniscient. He would never forget his position and put himself into a suffering position. So it's really a desperate attempt. But again, these are it's actually more common than I think people understand. We are all in ISKCON means that most probably if you're in ISKCON, it means that you're not a Nitya Siddha. It means that you're not eternally liberated, yeah? So it means there is some material disease that you're working on. Yeah? Fair enough to say that? Some material disease that we're all working on. And that will manifest. So even though we're trying to convert our desires from material desires to Krishna conscious desires, that's still going to be, there's going to be contamination. There's going to be passion and there's going to be ignorance. So it's very important actually to understand when these modes are acting upon ourselves and on others. It's very, very profound point. And that way one can deal with the material energy not in an impersonal manner, but in a way where one is equipped with knowledge. And this is what Krishna instructs Arjuna to do. Thus equipped with the weapon of knowledge, you'll be able to strike down your enemy. Tu uspadena lenacha. So the Maya can attack us in this way, in that we seek desire in terms of gross gratification through the senses, and simultaneously, and more particularly when one becomes more advanced through subtle desires such as fame and recognition and distinction. These are also manifestations of mode of passion. Last call for questions.
Can you repeat your last sentence, please? I did not understand.
Yes, so there's also, because we have material desires, anyone in the material world has material desires unless they are a fully liberated person. Yeah, Mahabhagavat. And there's different definitions of liberation, but I won't go into that. But even the desire for distinction, title, as a devotee, these things are manifestations of the mode of passion. It's not that we come and put on Vaishnava attire and that means that we're liberated and we have no more contamination, and we can pretend like that, but it's not very mature. It's not a very mature way to be in Krishna consciousness. So these passions have to be purified. So and they're purified by regular recitation of Bhagavatam, and of course by chanting Hare Krishna. So then because we're not after, or we are after sattva. Sattva gun's actually very elevated. Sattva gun's very elevated. We're after Suddha Sattva, we're after pure goodness. But to get to Suddha Sattva, we have to have sattva first. And to get to the sattva, we have to get rid of the mode of passion. And to even just get to mode of passion, you've got to get rid of the modes of ignorance. So it's no small thing. I mean, this is all anartha nivritti. So this is all getting rid of these anarthas, which are very deep. And they're so deep that one can think one is acting, and this is specifically for when, if devotees are infected by this, it may not be most of the time. It can just be at a moment of weakness. It can be on occasion. It can be when Maya catches the person. But they will not think that they are being controlled. So another way to look at it is, according to the purity of the devotee, Krishna can use that devotee, right? And conversely, according to the impurity of the devotee, then that's how Maya can use that devotee. Right? What to speak of the karmis? And that's why in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that even if one commits the most abominable act in Krishna consciousness, if he is properly situated, he should still be considered saintly. Because the modes can overwhelm one who's trying, even a devotee who's trying very hard. The modes can overwhelm. So it's very dangerous to think that, we're just, I was liberated months ago. I was liberated. Don't worry, Prabhu, you'll get there. You're just on the mental platform. I was on the mental platform too once. Sometimes they used to say like that, You're just on the mental platform. So I was once on that platform, but no more. So one should be careful, because that's a manifestation of pridefulness. So we should never be ignorant as to the power of Maya, as to how powerful Maya is, because Maya is very, very powerful. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you for your lecture. So speaking about pride, I asked myself, even before you spoke now, so specific about these natures, modes of nature. Because once in a lecture I heard that if you are rich and you have, it's more easy to become snobbish or puffed up, because everything is there and you don't have to be humble, because you have to seek for your food and so on. You understand?
Yeah.
That is what I'm.
And what specifically is the question?
Yeah. Now the question is, because that was the basis of the question. Is there? So Krishna says, I think in the Bhagavatam, that there is special mercy if he bestows upon you that he makes you poor, so that you can surrender unto him. But is there? Should we now think better of being poor of ourselves? So should we go into such a direction to difficult to formulate? But can you get?
Yasya aham anugrina ahami. How do you say it? No. Yasya aham Sri Bhagavan Vacha. How do you say it? The verse is Srimad Bhagavatam. It's Canto 10, 88:8. How do you see it? My mind's blanking. I just recited it today. Yasya aham anugina ami. How do you see it? Tatyanam shnai. Yasya aham anugina ami. Anyway, it's 10:88:8. And here Krishna says, it's Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Yasya aham anugina ami. How do you see it? Tatyanam shnai. Tad aham bhakti parisam. Yasna ami prayitatmana. I'm not sure. To those I show a special fortune, I gradually take away his wealth. After that, his friends and relatives soon become disgusted. In this way, he suffers one distress after another. Dukkha dukkaliam. How do you see it? I'm just blanking on this verse. Dukkha dukkaliam. So it's a very intelligent question. It's a very good, nice question, because I definitely struggled with this idea. I was like, why can't I be a devotee and have money? I mean, I don't see why this is a problem. I don't see why that's problematic. Why can't I be God conscious and have the money? Why not? Well, if you're going to give money to all these demons, if you're going to give billions of dollars to demons, why can't you give money to a nice guy like myself? I'll be a devotee. You're coming up. You're next.
Are you finished with your explanations of? I mean, is this a question or for?
I'm halfway through the explanation. You're asking me if I'm finished. I'm halfway through the explanation. You're asking whether I'm finished.
I just had an idea. I thought you were very.
No, go in, Prabhu.
Very nice lecture.
Go in, Prabhu. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
I don't think I need a microphone, but yes, of course.
We're now in Ishtagoshti. Okay, Prabhu.
I have to speak.
Hare
in
Krishna.
stuff. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
So I think it's not a problem to be rich, because as we see in Pundarika Vidyanidhi, who was very rich and was sitting on a Vyasa like this, and Gadadhar, he was completely bewildered, he thought also, because he was very renounced. But then it came out how much a great devotee he was. So I think the problem is not to be rich, the problem is that the Lord wants us to be depending on Him. And if He sees that we really depending on Him, He can give us more and more facility. If He thinks, well, that's a service. We see many, I know quite some rich devotees, and if they use the richness to, kind of facilitate different things or whatever, then the Lord gives them more, because that's the channel where He distributes, for example, wealth or even support.
Yeah.
So-
It's a very, there's absolutely nothing wrong with what you've said. There's absolutely nothing wrong with what you said. And we have nice examples of Ambarish Prabhu, who is Henry Ford's grandson, of course. But then we have, and it's very nice, Prabhu. But then we have, if you want to take it philosophically further, the question is, well, why didn't Krishna, certainly he could entrust Prabhupada to have money, so why did he take money away from Prabhupada? So he's a Mahabhagavat, he's a Nityasiddha, and maybe he wasn't in that part of his Leela at that point in his life, because he wasn't sannyas at that point. So why did Prabhupada have to go through that? Why is it okay for some devotees to have money and others to not have money? Because as we can see, it's not about adhikari, it's not about qualification. I think that's fair comment. I think it's fair comment to say that since Prabhupada was the most elevated, and yet Krishna took away his money, and Prabhupada relayed that anecdote that he, realized Krishna had taken away his money, and he had to chuckle because there was nothing left he could do. The money was gone. So Krishna had another plan for that devotee. So I would say it's beyond my realization. I can only say that it appears to be, from my realization, it appears to be on a case-by-case basis. It appears to be on a case-by-case basis. And also we have examples of other devotees who were very poor, and the greatness of a devotee, and their greatness was illustrated by the fact that they still gave 50% to Krishna consciousness, and I can't recall the name of the devotee in Bengal who made money. Was it selling banana skins? And he still gave 50%. So that's, maybe Ramananda Gopal can remember the name of the devotee.
No, not in Bengal, but there's a devotee, actually a proper disciple from Germany. And he was running a bicycle shop.
Right.
And he had no money to pay his bills. Then he decided to give everything what he has. He give everything to the temple. And then an opportunity came up where he whatever it was, that he became quite wealthy after that. But still, that was his surrender, like Queen Kunti says. Take away this wealth or knowledge, beauty, whatever. Because this is hindrance. But in this moment we give out of surrender, then the Lord rewards you. If we give I give something and I wait for the reward.
Yes.
And we interested on the reward on the material, this makes no sense. And Prabhupada, you're completely right. The Lord took everything away. His position, even what if we can call it position, what Srila Prabhupada had. Yes. But it was also not the right circumstance, because if he would have given money to Prabhupada, then his wife was not exactly in the same course like Prabhupada was going. So she wanted to have some material opulence, and the money would be maybe gone in this direction. So therefore he took everything away from Prabhupada, and then see how rich he was. Not he, but the movement became so rich because of Prabhupada.
Yes.
Or?
Yes. So I said, to my realization, it's case by case, and that's why we chant Shikshastikam Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavita Vardigyarishva Kami Mama Jamani Jamaniswari Bhavatad Oitigitwai. We have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor followers, nor beautiful women. Again, we're talking about the followers. These one has to be advanced. It's almost like a crass example is like being brahmachari or grihasta. Let's use another example. So to be grihasta, one almost has to be more advanced than an average brahmachari to be able to do that, to have the self-control and the restraint. This is what I'm talking about. Controlling the mode of passion, to be able to control these opulences. It actually takes more advancement to be a grihasta, self-controlled grihasta, than to just, do the program in the brahmachari ashram. You just do the program. It's pretty simple. But if you're operating independently, I mean, there's a lot more skill and a lot more adhikari and realization involved, in my personal view. So, so yes, of course, I'm absolutely. There's no way I'm disagreeing with what you're saying. But I think if a good idea is to always chant in a humble state of mind. In other words, complete detachment. Whether it comes, it comes. Whether it doesn't come, it doesn't come. Because again, it's that attachment. And that attachment is the problem. That's the attachment is where Maya comes in. So that attachment is from the mode of passion. And so this idea, na sachati na kankshati, neither lamenting or desiring, that's the point. The point is that you never give Maya the opportunity to disappoint you and to become envious of Krishna. Because as soon as one becomes envious of Krishna and desires material enjoyment, they're struck down. So that's Dvaita Bhadra Bhadra. No, that's not the one. Dvaita Bhadra Bhadra. No, that's mental speculation. So anyway, that's the position. So the point is, if you have the adhikari to have money and to be equipoised with that money, then Krishna will give you that money. That's not a problem. But if that's going to be detrimental to your spiritual life, then you won't get it. Or if it's going to be advantageous to your spiritual life to not have money, then Krishna's definitely going to do that. And to finish your point further, because it's actually a very nice question, and it requires really a lot of attention to service the question properly. But generally speaking, that being said, we are going towards renunciation. So, which was the latter half of your question. So generally speaking, even if we have this money, it's still ultimately got to be given to Krishna. You still have to go through vanaprastha, and then you have to go through the sannyas, right? Ultimately, and so that is renunciation. So generally speaking, and I wish someone had sort of told me this when I started out, it is better at the starting stage to go a little towards renunciation. Because to go through karma kanda, it's sort of it's a little lower class. We are going towards renunciation anyway. Let's not beat around the bush. We're going towards renunciation. So of the two, if you're unsure, if there's a situation, think, should I have this? Should I not have this? I would say, and this is maybe, I'm sure different devotees have different perspectives on this, but I would say make an error on the side of having less. Sure, I can use this new, headphones for Krishna's service. I can use these new, sure, we can do all that. But do you really, really need it? And if you really need it, then absolutely. But if you don't really need it, then you probably could be more on the renounce side. So keep it simple living, higher thinking. But again, devotees are going to have different perspectives on this. So, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
No, I think it's now more less a discussion now, but it just triggered one point, because he said we should go towards renunciation. I completely agree with you, especially if you're going in the direction of being a brahmachari and being in the renounced order, or as a brahmachari, you should not get some wealth later on. You in a household life, you maybe get wealth, or in the renounced stage, you should not have wealth at all. But actually, our Vaishnava Siddhanta, or as I see it with, is this world is actually, it's Krishna's energy.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like I renounce the BMW of the neighbor. What's the big deal? Because it's not anyway not my BMW.
Yes.
So, but using if I go to the neighbor and polish his BMW for his pleasure, that would be devotional service to him.
Yes.
So, and this is our, we understand. Okay, that's the world of Krishna. That's his potency. Let's use it for him.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I mean, that's fine. I mean, that's how we preach to people that come to the Sunday feast, ultimately, right? We say to them, you can use everything for Krishna. Yes, you can have a Mercedes, but use it for Krishna. But I'm saying on a training level, in my personal view, we should be going for not the most, a good analogy is we don't cook for the deity super palatable foodstuffs with the knowledge that we're going to have the remnants.
Sure.
Right. So it's like that. That's probably the best analogy for it, in that we are still trying to keep things simple. We are still trying to keep things simple. Because for most of us, it's not going to be a problem of where am I going to spend these millions. For most of us, it's going to be these little things that we want to get, and they lead to other things, to other Maya, really, in a way.
Yeah, but this
And it's like, so if you just cut it off at the bud and say, well, you know what, I don't really need this. So, and obviously it's actually a profound philosophical point, and I wish I could do it better justice, but it's just over my experience. If you're unsure, err on the side of, do I really, really, really need this? Can I live without it? Do I want it or do I need it? It's another way of saying it. Do I want it or do I need it? If it's clearly for Krishna's service, if you're buying things for the temple, obviously, that doesn't even come into question, right? But I'm talking about situations where you might be pulled away. So even in the Grihastha ashram, it's endless. It's endless, right? Well, not Grihastha, but Griha Medi. Griha Medi is endless, is not endless. You got the best schools. You got to do this. The servants. It never ends. So that's the point. It just becomes like a dark well that never ends. So the point is, we have to place limitations on it because it becomes too much of a distraction. But this is not a shot at an ashram. If anything, those that can manage that are just very advanced. It's very hard to be Praka Grihastha. It's really advanced. So I have complete respect. I have complete respect because it's difficult, very difficult. And some devotees can just make it look easy when it's not. Sorry, you wanted to add something? Was that it?
Yeah, I wanted to, if I may, because it's already way over the time, expand the question, because now I can formulate the question right. That was my initial direction where this thought was going. Because I am attached, of course, to material things, and I know these are material things, I can't use in devotional service, or not now and in the near future, so big attachments that are actually probably Maya, and I can't leave them, and then I can decide whether to take them or take not them, but of course I take them because I'm super attached. And then my question is, in order to surrender unto Krishna, which is our supreme goal in this life, I want to surrender unto Krishna 100%. But
no, these are very good questions. They're very intelligent questions. I'm not flattering you. These are very good questions because they're things that everyone struggles with, I think, at some point in their devotional life. And so the idea of yukta vairagya, of dovetailing, what you have in Krishna consciousness is nice. But at a certain point, you're at a certain stage of advancement when you should really say, okay, well, do I want to take this seriously or not? You know, I can carry on at this level, or I can try to advance. And so that's the dissonance you're probably experiencing now. The dissonance being, I want to advance in Krishna consciousness because this is really great, but at the same time, I'm attached to this, and I'm afraid that if, and I'm speculating, or I'm just giving a characterization of it, I'm not speculating, I'm saying this is what one could think, that if I artificially renounce this, then I could have a breakdown of some sort, right? So it's a very intelligent question because you don't want to push it too fast and do too much too soon. But at the same time, it's not bad to test your limits. It's not bad to test your limits.
I posed this question because it's like if I decide
you can always go back to where you were. I mean, you don't have to.
I have some personal thing, and this to let go of this would be how would you say ultimate. So
you're saying some things are definitive. You can't go back to them.
Yeah, it's like the attachment. It would be not the same as before.
Do you want to characterize it or no? It's private.
It's private, but it's about association with other people. Yeah, and
right. Well, I mean, I can't. I'm just not going to sugarcoat it because this is nectar of instruction, and so I think it's misleading to say that you don't have to reduce association with other people because that's not prescribed by Rupa Goswami. So Rupa Goswami says, Atyahara. Utsahan nishchaya daryat tat karma pravatana sangatyagat sato vrite. Sangatyagat, sangha, worldly association, tyagat, renounce. We are to renounce it. We are to minimize it. We are to minimize it. Jnana Sangha Tyagat Sato Vrite, and to follow in the footsteps of the Mahajans and the Acharyas. So it's not a joke process. It's just not a joke process. Here's the thing, it's like an analogy for Krishna consciousness is that when you chant your 16 rounds for 2 hours, that meditative process, how well you can execute that, and do it as one, that is a reflection of your whole Krishna conscious life. So every time in your Krishna conscious life, when you allow Maya to get in, I mean, we're always in some kind of Maya. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. But some distraction to come in and to pull us off course, then that's distracting our meditation. So it's like trying to chant 16 rounds and letting the phone ring and answering the phone every time the phone rings. That's the analogy. It breaks your meditation. We're supposed to eventually get to the point where we're just in samadhi. That's the whole purpose of the process. So all of these things pull us away. They pull us away. We're trying to go east, and these activities, they take us west. We're trying to go east, but we want to associate with worldly-minded people. And it's very, very difficult because we have true, profound affection and love for family members, for friends. It's just tough. It's really tough. It's really not easy. And you just have to be as polite and respectful and manage it as best you can. Just if you're going to see them, don't do activities that are sinful. You always got to really invite them to prasadam. That was a good thing about being in Australia. You could always invite them to a restaurant. They'd always come to a restaurant and they'd always happily have Hare Krishna food. Happily. So, but they also got frustrated. I remember they would get frustrated because they're like, oh, we either do this or we can't do anything. Well, yeah, sorry. Because if I go to the house and they cook and it's just never, well, we'll cook some vegetarian. Yeah, you're cooking them in meat pots, you know what I mean? So it never works out. It never works out. You have to bring your own food, and this is the downside of it. I mean, it's very difficult. I just think the best way to handle it is to just be very humble and very polite, and not in a arrogant way say, no, you're atheistic demons and I cannot eat from your plates. Obviously, that's not wise. But we say to them, I'm really sorry, but this is a really strict yoga. I just hope you can understand it, and I apologize about this, and it's difficult, I know, and I just hope you can bear with me. And that'll be very well received. They'll go, okay, well, you know, he's being so nice about it, and he's being really humble about it. He's not being, you know, arrogant. So, of course, you know, just say, I'm sorry. Or try to just do some things that are just, you know, if you really want to spend some time like a sport, I mean, even that's frivolous activities, but I mean, we've got to keep it real. So if you want to spend time, maybe do some sport or something. But again, it's sort of minimizing, because again, it's the best analogy I can give you is we want to go east and they're going west. So every time you go west, you're not going east. That's what it's like. That's what it's like. And it's very tough in the West. It's not like they're Indian, you know, they just don't really understand. So it's hard. But we're not impersonalists. We can't just go, well, see you later. So we have to handle them kindly. Anyway, that's the reality. That's it's difficult. Is that all right?
Yes. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Was there anything else? Would anyone like to ask anything? Mataji, did you want to? We can go to 8:30.
Also wir wollen es nicht allzu lange machen, aber Krishna stellt uns immer vor Entscheidungen. Wir können uns jederzeit entscheiden, gehen wir den Weg oder den Weg. Und er testet uns auch immer wieder. Und man reift ja in der Zeit auch und man macht seine Erfahrung. Und wenn man im materiellen Leben jetzt viel negative Erfahrungen gesammelt hat, dann denkt man, also gehe ich doch lieber diesen Weg. Also Krishna stellt das ganz geschickt an, uns zu lenken, aber trotzdem haben wir immer die alleinige Entscheidungsfreiheit, das so zu machen oder so zu machen, diesen Weg zu gehen oder diesen Weg zu gehen. Und aus unseren Erfahrungen werden wir dann, daraus resultiert dann immer unser weiterer Weg. Entweder hängen wir noch zu sehr an der Materie, dann gehen wir diesen Weg wieder ein bisschen mehr, oder wir hängen nicht an der Materie so sehr, sondern für uns ist der andere Weg interessanter, der spirituelle, dann werden wir das von alleine dann fallen lassen mit der Unterstützung von Krishna.
Yes.
Ja?
I'm sorry, was that a question at the end or?
Gibt es eine Frage oder?
Eine Frage eigentlich nicht. Das waren jetzt nur meine Erfahrungswerte so.
Yeah, and if I could comment on your comment, my comment would be that
Ihr macht jetzt einen Kommentar zu deinem Kommentar.
So Krishna's kindness can be exemplified in cruel experiences that we have to go through.
Grausame Erfahrungen bestehen.
Ja.
And the more we realize as devotees, he might be even more blunt about it, in that he knows that we can understand. So he may put devotees through more pain than he'll put through materialists, because the devotee can realize. The devotee has access to that information. The materialist, he'll just go crazy and jump off a bridge or whatever, or do something very negative. So sometimes the devotee will go through even more, just to get the message. So the point you were talking about, you either go the material way or you go the devotional way. One just simply has to get to the point where there's more momentum, there's more energy, and there's more focus, realization, belief, shraddha, faith in the devotional path. That's really the life's aim, because once you get to that point, then the rest is easy, because it's just downhill from there. It's just downhill from there, because you know you can't go back to that other path. It's gone.
Ja, ja. Ja, wir
So
werden
that is the value of experience. That is the value of these life experiences. And the point is not to waste them.
Krishna testet uns dann immer wieder. Ja,
Well, yeah, and sometimes it's relentless. There's just no respite. It's that you get through one test and then the next one's started already.
ja.
So he doesn't waste time. He doesn't waste time.
Und kennt
And
uns.
he can be very patient too.
Ja,
He doesn't waste time when things are when you're ready for it. But he can also be very patient.
ja. Aber wie gesagt, er arrangiert immer wunderbare Dinge, wo man immer wieder überlegen muss, ja, was mache ich jetzt? Gehe ich den Weg oder gehe ich den Weg? Und, oder man kommt sich dann selber vor wie so ein Verbrecher, wenn man Dinge gemacht hat, die nicht besonders erfreulich sind für Krishna. Und dann entweder lässt man das dann von alleine, wenn man Krishna ja erfreuen möchte, oder man ist noch nicht reif dafür, ja, für bestimmte Sachen. So, also das war jetzt bloß mal so meine Erfahrung.
Yes, thank you, Manaji. Hare Krishna.
Und danke für
Yeah, bitte gerne.
die Aufklärung.
I have just one little.
Sure, like I said,
Yeah, can you further
the
explain?
mic goes off at 8:30.
Can you further explain the point that Krishna does not waste time? Please.
Yeah, so Krishna. Oh, it's funny this came up because I was just thinking today that Krishna can make the world Krishna conscious within a very short period of time. So the question is, why doesn't he do it? Well, he doesn't do it because ISKCON's not ready for it. So it's not a matter of Krishna not caring, but if it all goes into Maya, then what's the point? So this is also analogous with the money issue, and it's also analogous. Well, no, it was also rather touched upon by Srila Prabhupada in his letter to Tamal Krishna Goswami, where Tamal was concerned about money and genuine concern about growing the movement. And Prabhupada said, well, what's even if we got this money, what's the point if it's going to go into Maya? So the exponential growth of ISKCON in the last during 1976 and 1977 was astronomical. It was incredible how fast ISKCON was scaling. This is the modern term, right? Scaling in terms of growth, and it was unbelievable. It's just incredible. Just money was, bucket loads of money, buying skyscrapers, hundreds of devotees waiting to get initiated. Krishna can act immediately. So the question is, why isn't it like that now? Well, because ISKCON's not ready. The Krishna consciousness is not ready. Frankly, I think that. So if we could handle it, then Krishna would send. So so Krishna can be extremely patient, and he can move extremely swiftly. He can move extremely swiftly. So Prabhupada once, during, I think it was 76, 77, there was a shocking comment by Prabhupada who said, actually, if my leaders just followed my directions, we could take over the world in 18 days. So it appears ISKCON has more maturing to do. So It can be as slow. So many millions of lifetimes we've been waiting to go to Krishna consciousness, and Krishna's been patiently waiting and patiently just trying to nurture us into advancing in Krishna consciousness. And yet you become a devotee and suddenly it's just all intense. Suddenly, almost every day or every hour, something's happening. You're being tested, you're being molded. So it can be like that. It can go from virtually nothing whatsoever to full intensity. But that depends on your circumstance. That's your circumstance. Does that answer the question?
It's very nice. Yeah, now I have like built a circle around the topic. Thank you. Hare Krishna, thank you for
Hare
your
Krishna.
nice lecture.
Thank you very much. All glories Srila Prabhupada ki.
Janardhana, Hari Prabhu ki jai.